Iran is in a really terrible, terrible place now. You have to realize we just came out of a huge massacre in which thousands of Iranians were killed. Now, the exact numbers is not known yet, but it's in thousands. No, even the government officials admit that it's in thousands. It is very easily the worst massacre in Iranian history. We haven't had a massacre of protesters like that. Now, we've had a lot of wars, but in peacetime, we've never had something like that. Certainly not in the history of the Islamic Republic, certainly nothing like that under the Pahlavis, right? So this is a very poignant moment. And also, we are surrounded by the United States now. It's very clear that the United States, it's going to either attack Iran or force important concessions out of Iran for not attacking. So Trump will not let Iran easy, basically. This economic siege has been on for years, but now there is an actual military siege. The writing is on the wall. And you have a regime with really untenable policies, right? It's not governance. If you cannot provide a basic standard of living to your people, and if you have to go kill them on the street every couple of years, and you also have to fight America and Israel every couple of years, I mean, that's not governance, right? This is not how you govern a country. So Iran is in a very terrible shape. It's in a very terrible space, and things could, of course, get much worse. That's what a lot of Iranians don't realize. So, a civil war, like you had in Lebanon from 75 to 90, and frankly, the Lebanese civil war is light compared to Syrian civil war, for example, in terms of numbers of killed, right? Hundreds of thousands were killed in Syria. In Iraq, we had more than 1 million killed, right? So the possibility of a civil war is the worst thing that I'm fearful of in terms of when you say what's going to happen in the future. That's the worst case scenario. One of the other problems we have, you mentioned Reza Pahlavi. Reza Pahlavi was the last crown prince of Iran. He hasn't been to Iran since 1978. He does have many supporters in Iran. He is popular. He has many supporters, but he doesn't have a majority. He doesn't have an organization, and he's been a rather divisive figure. He's not really able to bring Iranians together. He's sort of, people desperately just say, well, if he would be the guy, it would be good. But, he doesn't have what it takes. I have not seen him show he has what it takes to do what he claims he wants to do, which is be a transitional figure, to move from regime to a democratic setup. But the reality is Iranian opposition is divided, doesn't have its act together. People that I would support as my leaders are today in prison in Iran, so they cannot organize. And those of us outside have not really been able to organize a force. So all of this means what? I'm answering your question in terms of what's going to happen. So I can give you worst case, best case, and then what is actually going to happen, which is neither. So the worst case is civil war, as I said, and we're worried about that, right? And that could be activated in a number of ways, and we're very worried about that. Collapse of the state, that kind of thing. Best case, of course, will be democratic transition. But, how is that going to happen? The way it works is that, you need to have domestic sort of leaders and leaders that are in a position that are able to mobilize the people and bring them out in certain times and, do a strikes and finally lead to a rupture in the ruling class. I don't see it happening, right? So in any sort of a short, medium term, it's unfortunate. It's a goal I will fight all my life for democratic transition, right? Even for us to have a parliament as you have in Lebanon, in which people can vote and elect their people, will be a dream, and we'll fight for it. But it's not a short or medium term, in agenda. It's a possibility. So the most likely thing to happen, frankly, is for figures from inside the Iranian regime currently to take power and change the core policies and core structures of Iran, so that, probably less social repression, lifting of the sanctions, better relationship with the United States, but it's still authoritarian. I mean, that sounds to me like the most likely thing. But the future of Iran will be determined by a complex interaction between the people and the popular protests, the crowds, to use an old term, Iranian opposition to the degree, which is non-existent mostly, but to the degree that it exists, and different factions of the regime, and foreign powers, i.e. US and to a lesser degree Israel, and the regional countries like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and others. With their interaction, they'll shape the next outcome in Iran. which means that it's likely that it would be a, my friend Karim Sajjadpour has a beautiful article in Foreign Affairs that came last year, in which he gives 5 scenarios for Iran, and he likens them to different countries, like the North Korea scenario, the Pakistan scenario, the Turkey scenario, which is a democratic one, and I think there's Russia and there's China, right? So I think the most
Mm-hmm.
likely is a mix of China and Pakistan, and hopefully some more Turkey, by which I mean, democracy and making the parliament more representative. But the North Korea option is also not really going to happen
Mm.
because the hardliners in Iran don't have what it takes to build a ideologically resolute Islamist state that really continues Khamenei's